Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. In today's midweek video, I am going to be showing you how to make one of our favorite meals. It is very easy, very delicious. I have served it to a number of people and they have all loved it. And it is also plant-based, so it works for people with dietary restrictions. You need very minimal ingredients for this recipe. If you're someone who keeps a lot of baking and cooking staples on hand, it's very likely that you already have most of what you would need. And I will take you through, show you how I make it. We are making a lentil walnut taco meat. And I know on the face of it, that probably sounds bizarre. If you're not someone who commonly eats plant-based foods, this is probably a little bit outside of your wheelhouse, but just go with me here. It is really delicious. So the things that you are going to need for this recipe are chopped walnuts, lentils, you can use red or green, it really doesn't matter, and taco seasoning. I whipped up my own taco seasoning with spices that I had, but you can also just use the ready-made pack of taco seasoning, and don't be afraid of being a little heavy-handed with the seasoning on this recipe. You want it to be very vibrant and flavorful, and because you're working with walnuts and lentils, which tend to really soak up all of the flavor, it's kind of hard to overdo it, so don't be shy. The most time-intensive part of this recipe is the prep for it, because the lentils and the walnuts need to soak for 30 minutes before you actually start cooking them. That helps soften them up and get them ready to go. I will be using our Dutch oven, but you can use a pot or a skillet of your preference. It really doesn't matter. Oh, and it's also really nice to include a can of diced tomatoes. You can also use fresh diced tomatoes if you have them on hand, but I always use canned just because it's really convenient. So with all of that said, let's go ahead and start getting into the recipe. So I have found that the walnuts do not need to soak quite as long as the lentils do. So I'm going to go ahead and get them chopped and start sauteing them now and let the lentils sit probably even past when the timer goes off. It just doesn't hurt them to sit for a little while longer. The walnuts are already chopped, so I'm just breaking them up into slightly more manageable pieces so that they'll integrate into the rest of the dish and not be quite as noticeable. So now that the walnut and seasoning has reached a nice toasty place, and you can just kind of tell by the way that it smells, you kind of want to flirt with the edge of it being just like almost burnt, but obviously not burnt. I'm going to go ahead and add the lentils, and I'm just going to go ahead and add them with the water that they've been soaking in, and then I'll add more water to it. And then I'm also going to add a can of diced tomatoes. So now I am going to let this come to a boil and then reduce to a simmer. And we're looking for the lentils to get nice and tender and for this all to become one homogeneous dish. Right now you can kind of see all of the individual ingredients, and by the time we're done, it's going to look a lot more like something that you would put in a taco. So now that the lentils have reached the consistency that I was looking for, I went ahead and turned off the heat. I also tested a bite of the lentils to make sure that they were cooked the way that I wanted them to be. If you make this recipe and you have cooked off the majority of the water and the lentils have soaked up what there is to soak up, and you find that they're still a little tough, it is completely fine to add more water and let the whole thing continue to simmer for a little bit longer. You're not going to hurt it. It will be completely fine. The cool thing about this meal and why I like it is because it's the perfect meal prep meal, because you can do so many different things. You can do tacos, you can put it on salads, you can do it in like a taco bake in the oven. It's very versatile and it holds up really well for, you know, up to a week in the fridge. And you can add a bunch of stuff to it if you need to stretch it to feed more people. You can add corn, peppers, beans, whatever the case may be, whatever floats your boat. And if you have a lot of hungry people to feed, this will go a really long way. It's chock full of plant-based goodness. It is so filling. You don't need as much of it as you think to get full. So I'm really looking forward to having this. And I made this specifically because we are going on the road for a couple of days, and it'll be really nice to have this sitting in the fridge ready to eat when we need it. Plus, the longer that you let it sit, the more flavorful everything becomes, because those spices and seasonings all marinate, and it's like a good soup. You know that a soup is always better the day after you make it than it is the day of.